Jack, what do you know about demo engineering?
What do you mean, like now or before we just sat through this episode recording?
Ooh, why don't you describe the gap to me? What did you know before and what do you know now?
I mean, what I knew before is I knew there were people who focused at least a part of their job on making demos better for pre-sales. And that was pretty much where it was. I thought it was something that a lot of people did as a side hustle with their job, right? It's something that like, okay, you got two people who really kind of care about and know the technology that we use. And so they're kind of assigned to be like the people who are the points of contact for whatever demo tech you have. But that's not their full-time job. Like that's where I was at. What about you? Where were you at before this conversation?
I didn't even know this was a even further niche within solutions engineering and everything that we do. I have engineered demos as part of my role, but I've never heard of the concept of demo engineering. So if you're tuning in today, welcome to the PreSales podcast. I'm your co-host, Matthew James, and we're with Jack Cochran, our other co-host. Jack, who did we speak to today about demo engineering?
We talked to Micah Joel, who many of you might not know, but he's kind of one of the guys about demo engineering. He's been focusing on demos for more than 25 years, first as an SE himself, but then actually, as you'll hear in the episode, doing it full time. When he was at Salesforce, he was leading their demo strategy where he worked for their infamous Q branch. Yes, they named it after the James Bond films. He really believes that strong demo foundation is the key to making SEs more successful. And as he talked about, actually having that be a primary function that you do, not being an SE who does demo stuff, but being someone that's what you do. I learned so much. I'm actually kind of very excited for everyone to hear this episode because it's something that I think we need to all agree. This is something that almost every company should consider if this is a role they need at their company, at least what I walked away thinking.
You've got these multiplicative effects of the demo engineering organization across an org. And also, I took away for myself some ways I could be thinking about my own workflows. So really excited for everyone to hear the conversation today. Jack, anything else before we jump in?
I will say it is now 2026. If you're listening to this in relative real time, there's a lot of great events going on. So make sure you're tuned in to see about anything where we're coming to your city, and especially check out SoulCon that has been announced. Tickets are on sale now. That's going to be in August. So make sure you check out SoulCon coming to Chicago in August of 2026. Check out tickets available today.
Can't wait to see you all there. Let's hop in.
Micah Joel, welcome to the PreSales podcast. We're so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Now, I know we've had a couple conversations, and actually, this is only the second time we're going to be doing a two-part episode when you and I were talking about everything relating to the work that you've done around building demo engineering teams and kind of how you tend to always fall back into that. There were so many avenues that I'm like, we have to restrict this to two parts. But I definitely want to have two different conversations. And so I'm actually very excited about our topic for today. We're going to be talking about building the demo engineering team from the ground up, which is something you've done before. And no matter how far away from it you tend to get, I remember you telling me you always tend to fall back into that role. So just for those of you who don't know your background, walk us through your background. How did you find yourself in the middle of doing this thing?
So I moved around a lot as a kid, and something I found that helped me adjust to new schools was to join whatever production, whatever play was being put on. Because I was a guy and I was willing to try out. I'd get in the show and I'd end up doing theater. So basically I did theater most of my childhood and through college. And then I went to school, I got an international studies degree, and I joined the workplace, and I was in marketing, which seemed like a fun place to be. And I noticed that there were these people who were in conference rooms all the time having a better time than I was. They were always laughing, having fun. And I was like, who are those guys in that room? What do they do? And I found out that they were solution engineers, and I desperately wanted to be a solution engineer. So I worked on that for a few years and became an SE. And so I ended up being an SE for about 13 years. But for me, my first love was always demos. I didn't really ever think I'd make a career out of being an actor. I was a great actor for like a 12-year-old, but all the 12-year-olds passed me and got better at it. And I've never really gone beyond that in my acting. But if someone had told me at that age that I could be doing performances to very small venues of like a conference room with 6 people in them, but that I could actually make a living at that, I wouldn't have believed them. And I was really thrilled to discover that that was true. So for me, the demo was a performance. It was an opportunity to stand in front of a crowd, to do something I really enjoyed, and to be paid for it. the demos were the thing I loved the most. And because of that, I was doing tons of demos all the time. I kind of tried to cast myself as the demo guy. If you need a demo, call me in. So I was using demo tools a lot, and I started to get mad because the demo tools that were available to me were good, but they could have been so much better. And so that was the point where I approached the team. This was while I was at Salesforce, and said, I know you have some people who are kind of part-timing demo environments and everything. How can I take this on? How can I take this on as a full-time job to make sure that these environments are terrific so that everybody else who does demos can benefit?
So we're 3 for 3 on theater backgrounds on this call right now. I wonder what that says about us as solutions engineers heading into demo engineers. I think you might have got me and really nailed it. It's kind of, I feel like the spotlight is on me when you say there is something really unique about being able to present to a group of 6 people, and that is the role. That is so true.
And there are different kinds of SEs, right? There's SEs who are highly technical, and there are SEs who are really good with C-levels. But yeah, when you come from theater, the demo is everything. And so pretty much my whole career, that's what's been driving me.
What's interesting about that perspective that you said, you enjoyed being a sales engineer, solution engineer, all the titles that we have, but your first love was always the demo. I, to this day, still talk to a lot of people that still think, well, that's the primary function of being an SE. So a lot of people could be listening going, wait, what do you mean difference from focusing on the demo versus being an SC? So you're talking specifically about stripping out everything else that has to go along with being an SC or on the value side of things, and just focusing on having valuable, crisp, clean, unobtrusive environments that don't get in the way, right?
I totally agree. And yeah, and I don't want to devalue the other parts of being an SE. There's lots of different skills and lots of different requirements there. But for me, and I think for the purposes of our conversation today, focusing just on how do you make sure that they're equipped with the best possible demo environments and the best possible resources to help them be successful when they're delivering demos.
I recall, and Matthew, I'm sure you've got time that you could recall as well, where I've spent days when I had to master my own demo environment, just days, just tinkering with it, trying to make it do the thing I wanted to do. I knew I could make it easier to run. And actually, this goes back to before when I was selling software that wasn't cloud-based software. It was actually stuff we would go install in someone's data center. And I had to spin up a version using things like Docker images and virtual machines on my local computer, or a combination of the two. That I remember actually having a computer, a server in my own house, where I would spin up different versions of it that I would remote into to try and make it lightweight while I was traveling, because my laptop couldn't handle the environments that I needed to run. This is what I spent, a couple of jobs, I spent well over half of my time just trying to make my demo seem seamless.
And if you're a solution engineer doing that, I mean, well done. I'm old enough that I was swapping drives in and out of laptops so that we could do the demos as well, using Ghost, right? But the truth is you're wasting your time. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that your time is better spent in front of customers. And I think, I'm sure you know better than I do, but everything I've heard is that the more time an SE spends in front of a customer, the happier the customer is, the happier the SE is, the more likely the deal is to close. And so if you're spending time like setting up infrastructure just so you can show the product, that's time that would be much better spent in front of a customer. And so that's one of the things that also drives me is I don't mind being behind the scenes a little bit more now to help equip those, I don't know, I think of the race car drivers or astronauts or secret agents who are going to be out in the field, make sure that they have everything they need and are not wasting their time doing stuff that's just, I don't know, that's high calorie and not necessarily high customer benefit.
How do you know that an organization has reached that point, that it's time for a demo engineering team?
I'll tell you exactly when someone says, you'll hear this, oh, our solution engineers are heroes. That's when, because you know what it is. It means that their solution engineers are overworked. They're doing way too much. They're working on too many deals. And so the moment someone utters those words, and it's invariably a sales management who goes, oh yeah, I love our solution engineers. They're amazing. They work so hard. This is a good time to start thinking about whether or not having at least a demo engineer and maybe more would help that team. And here's why, because solution engineers are expensive and they're hard to come by. I mean, it's a skill set that's, I don't know if you've heard the joke, you probably have, but an engineer is someone who looks at their shoes when they're talking to you, and a solution engineer is someone who looks at your shoes when they're talking to you. It's hard to find the skill set of people who are both social and technical enough to sell these products. So when you find them, you want to make the most of them. And I think having a demo engineering team is a way to leverage those skills and to be able to make the most of them rather than having those people spend all of their time doing configuration.
Yeah, the team doesn't need to be as big as you think, because even as I was saying before, I've spent half of my time monkeying with my demo. So if you're thinking about that, and you have a team of 3 SEs, that's more than one person's time focusing on a demo environment, if you had someone whose skill set was specifically around that and spending their time not focusing necessarily on some of the other pieces, but how does this demo work, how to make it work better, even with a team of like 4 people having one person dedicated to the demo, if that's how intense your environment is, of course, your results may vary based upon how complex your solution is. It would already be saving time. It'd already be freeing up more resources. So those heroes wouldn't have to be as heroic. They could be just working.
That's exactly right. And if you're growing, and I think here's one of the truths, is solution engineers tend to have to grow linearly with the business. If you hire 3 more AEs, you have to hire another solution engineer, 3 more and 3 more. And I think that's roughly industry standard now, 3 to 1. But what you're doing with, I'm sure you know better than I do, but what you're doing with a demo engineering team is making it possible for your solution engineers to handle more deals, more AEs, more demos. And so you're able to grow the solution engineering teams more slowly than you grow the sales team. And that's where I think the big benefits come in.
We're talking about scale here. It's that 3 to 1 ratio. And you're so right. It's extremely challenging to find those leverage points in terms of an SE's time. So if you can do something repeatable or take something away or have a specialist in demo engineering, I think this is one of those rare opportunities that you can actually get this really right. Why don't you tell us a little more about that? How does this work for you? How have you structured the team, and why is that so important?
So the good news is you can start a demo engineering team with 1 person. I mean, you guys kind of brought it up, right? If you have 1 person whose job it is to make all the other solution engineers more successful, you're already winning. And so in my case, I hired 1 person, a guy named Hanul Park, brilliant guy, a developer. And I said to him, here's the problems that we're having. Here's a couple things that just drive solution engineers. Can you fix them? And he sat down and he wrote code. He wrote programs that were applications that the SEs would use to do things that normally took them a lot of time, changing the dates in a bunch of their demo environments, or changing the industry, or changing things that they normally had to configure manually. So from a high level, to get started, it's really simple. Hire 1 person who's technical enough to solve the kinds of problems your SEs are having. Then I think there's 2 pieces here. And when we talk about the structure of a demo engineering organization, there's 2 sides to think about. So one side I would call the scale side, which is what we're talking about here, which is who manages demo environments themselves, who builds automation tools to make configuring those faster, who looks at things like provisioning and make sure provisioning is easy and not a pain, who's focused on the infrastructure of demos and the content of those demos. And then the other side, more a deal-focused side, is who's helping solution engineers with deals. And when an SE needs an extra pair of hands, or they need someone more technical, or they need someone with design experience or something, who's there that they can reach out to and go, hey, I could really use some help. I got a call on Thursday for a meeting on Tuesday, and it's last minute. I need someone to help me out. So those 2 functions, I think, can coexist. And which one you build first depends on the kind of organization you have. What I would say is you really need to keep those separate. And my reasoning is because deal work will always take priority. And so if you have a blended team, and I mostly recently was working at a company here in Germany that had a blended team, every strategic project we had, they'd get pulled off it as soon as someone needed a demo. And so it was very hard to do the, tide raises the level of all boats by building all of these different tools when we couldn't be sure we could get those done, because at any given moment, we might get a phone call and have to jump off and go work on a demo. So I'd say there's 2 sides of the business, and you need to keep those separate, or else your strategic team will never be able to make strategic changes, and your deal team will never get better. If you only have a deal team, they're always just going to be doing the same work over and over. There's never any improvement because there's not going to be any tools to make their lives easier.
Can I bring you, the demo engineering doctor, a diagnosis? Because there was once upon a time that I was trying to provision a sandbox environment for one of our clients, and it took 3 team members, me and 2 other SEs. And we spent 6 hours between all of us before we could actually get that email sent over with their sandbox set up. Is that an opportunity for some demo engineering?
Yeah, totally. And actually, what you're hitting on is exactly that. The way you start a demo engineering team is you ask your solution engineers, what do you hate doing the most? Right? And they'll tell you, right? They'll tell you exactly what the problem is. And if that problem can be solved with technology, or with a person with technology skills, then that's where you start. And so what you're talking about is perfect. If that's something you had to do for every demo, or nearly every demo, or even, a couple times a week or every quarter, and you're spending 6 hours and 3 expensive people to do it, it's absolutely something you should look at. Now, a caveat to that is it depends on where that problem is. If the provisioning sits way back in engineering, You're going to need to do some politicking in order to go, figure out who do you talk to and who you work with and so forth. But I think a demo engineering's team, that's their remit, is to go figure out where the problem is, go find the people where the problem lies, work with them to make it easier, and then make lives for the SEs better.
Yeah. Something I hadn't considered is actually approaching it as a separate role from the start makes a big difference too, because I've tried to get demo engineering teams stood up in the past, and I've struggled to take someone who is in and of themselves very interested in taking that on as a full-time to then bring that and to say, okay, so we're pulling them out of deals so they can work on this. And no one could ever wrap their mind around the fact that we're freeing up everyone else's time exponentially so by having this one resource no longer focused on deals, because in everyone's mind, well, that's an SC that we're taking away. As opposed to, like you said, this is a resource whose job is to specifically solve those problems, not a customer-facing resource, but someone who's going to free up time for everyone else. I think I was just framing it wrong. And I think that's very important, kind of what you're talking about, framing it the right way.
You can think of it as a retention strategy too. I loved being an SE until I didn't. And there was a day, an AE came up to me and was like, this deal has the highest visibility. It's bigger than it looks like in Salesforce. The C-suite's all bought in. The customer's, super important. And I'm like, dude, do you know how many times I've heard that this week? Like those actual words, right? And I realized okay, I think I'm probably done being an SE. I think that was enough. 13 years of doing that was plenty. And my other choice would have been to leave, right? I would have left the company. I would have found something else to do, or I would have been an SE somewhere else. And it would have been at least felt new. So I think if you think of it as a retention strategy, take your senior SEs who are no longer really feeling the SE life. Maybe they got married, maybe they have a kid, maybe they can't travel, they can't be, in Iowa City on Tuesday with 3 days notice. These are your people who you can continue to leverage their skill and their knowledge, and they're your most valuable people because they absolutely, like you said, they're just helping everybody else be better, and that just multiplies.
One of the things that I'm always trying to figure out is how do you build more career paths into this thing that we do? And that's a valid point that I don't think a lot of us have thought about, is the scaling side. I think this even goes beyond as maybe a separate conversation, is we're not just talking about necessarily demo engineering, which is one of the pieces, but there's other scaling functions as well that this could roll into.
Well, and keep in mind too that, so you can bring people in from the top here, but you can also bring them from the bottom. And having let's say a new graduate work in a demo engineering role, and their expiration is about 2 to 3 years. About 2 to 3 years, they know more than the SEs do about the product, right? And they're wondering, why are the SEs getting paid so much and I'm still entry level? So what's nice about this is you can take the demo engineering team and you can use that as a farm team for the rest of the organization. And if you're a solution engineering organization and you're selfish, you can turn them into solution engineers. And so you already have this group of people, they know the product on day one, they've been interacting with your team, they know some of the positioning, and you can build them into solution engineers really easily, or into product management as well, because that's another path they take. But you're absolutely right. If the solution engineering team looks at this as an opportunity to get people in, get their hands on the product, but not put them in front of a customer quite yet, it can be really, really powerful.
Absolutely love it. So I think great first steps, but as I had said before, I did a couple things wrong when I was standing this up the first time. So you've got to have some tips, or maybe this is not just tips. Maybe this is just you telling me the story of stuff that you've messed up. You have to have some things that you're like, here are the mistakes that you should avoid, or organizations should avoid when you're looking at setting up a team. We already talked about kind of how you first set them up. What are the things you absolutely don't want to do when you're getting started?
The thing I mentioned before is you don't want a blended team. If you're going to support deals and you're going to build infrastructure, those teams should be separate or have a logical separation. They can have the same manager, but they should be defined on the slide as two different things. I think that's probably most important. And that's probably what companies do wrong the most, is try to have just a pool of people that are half-timing technical innovations. I would say the other thing is, I think where it can go wrong is from a metrics perspective. And we can have a whole discussion on metrics, and I think we will in our next podcast.
I think that's going to be the next one. So we might table some of that till then, but yeah.
At the highest level, you need to justify your existence. And there's a couple of different ways you can do that, but you really need to speak the language of management to do that. Management is money driven. They want to understand the dollar impact of the work that you do. And so you really need to put in the metrics necessary so that you can say every quarter, like clockwork, hey, this is the contribution that we've made to the business. And so that nobody says, so what is it you guys do exactly over there in the demo engineering team?
Right. No one wants to have to continually validate your existence. And I think as well, the worry would be that when tough gets tight, well, let's get rid of the demo engineering team, thinking that that's going to be better. And all you're doing is now making life exponentially more difficult. Not that there are ever throwaway roles, but there are some roles like when you're no longer hiring, you don't need recruiters, right? That type of a thing. It's not like, well, when we're trying to be tighter on the sales team, we get rid of our support functions. That doesn't make it any easier for the people customer-facing SEs at that point. It'll be just as stressful for everybody else.
That's exactly right. And the question is, well, once they've solved all the problems, what are they going to do? Good news for growing companies, there's no end to the challenges, right? There will never be a moment you go, well, I guess we're all done. I'll just, see myself out.
That's problem solved. There's never going to be any,
that's right.
any problems with demos.
Our SEs are 100% productive now, right? So it's not a problem you'll have. And the other thing, as growing companies will typically acquire, and one of the things that my teams ended up doing a lot of was working on acquisitions. And how do you integrate that acquisition with your demo, or how do you integrate your demo with their acquisition? So there's always more work to be done. But I agree with you. You need to be able to frame what you're doing in the right way with management so they understand what contribution your team is making. The good news is your team will immediately have a pretty good reputation. If you're helping SEs will talk about it. They sing your praises. The demo engineering team will show up in the messages that go around when deals close. It's, thank you so-and-so for helping. So the good news is it's not hard to have a good reputation as a demo engineering team, but quarterly planning, and if you want to grow that team, if you want to request more headcount, you absolutely need to have the right measures in place so you can justify that expenditure.
So how do you think about actually building this team? You've got some good frameworks around it. What do you look for in someone who's going to be a great demo engineer?
On the service side, on what we call the deal side of this, I think someone who's fresh, someone who's technical, depending on how technical the product is, but typically someone who's technical and possibly more technical than your typical SE is, so that they can do the work that an SE can't do. But I'd also, as I mentioned, because this could be a feeder to the SE organization, you want to hire someone who you think potentially has some SE capabilities. Someone who's not just a developer. I shouldn't say that. Developers are amazing, but not only a developer, but also has an interest in the sales side of things, in being in front of customers and talking to clients. So I think on the deal side, that's pretty important. Someone that you expect to grow. And as I mentioned before, what I've seen is 2 to 3 years is enough. 2 to 3 years of chasing demos is about the limit for most people early in their career. And they want to move on and they want to do something else. And that's perfect timing because by then they're in a great position. For the other side, for the infrastructure side, as we talked about a little bit, I think looking for your senior assets and transitioning them into that role can be really powerful. They know the problems. They're the things that have driven them crazy, but they've never had time to fix. They usually know how they would fix them and they know the people in the organization to get them done. So you can start at either end of that. You can kind of steal some people from your graduate recruiting program, or you can transition one person you have into a demo engineering role and see how that goes. So you can start on either end of that. I think have good results either way.
So kind of like if your SE is that bridge between the products and the customer, you kind of have these two in-betweens there, almost like the bridge between development and SE, and then the bridge between infrastructure and SE. And you can kind of fill those out depending on what the exact needs are. Really interesting.
Yeah, that's correct. And just wherever your greatest need is. You can have a very tactical need, and you can fill that with a demo engineering role of either type. At one company I was at, data was the problem. Just filling the demos with data. It was really hard to do. They needed millions of records. And so their biggest need was someone who could build a data tool that would allow solution engineers to fill their demos. That's the thing. And it wasn't just SEs. And I think this is when we talk about metrics and talking to management, it wasn't just SEs. The engineering organization needed a data tool to test all their products. And so did product management. And so did the customer service organization. So they could show customers how this would all work, and training, and the partner organization. So everyone was dependent on these tools that are technically demo tools for the solution engineers, but actually are used all throughout the organization. So you'll absolutely see the benefit of having someone in that role immediately, just depending on where your biggest pain is.
That example you gave of the data solution, my head goes to, all right, you put someone in this role, they solve that problem, and then what? Can you tell us about the impact of how you then transform that into a full-on role?
Yeah, well, and then what is, as I mentioned, there's always going to be something. But in a more strategic way, what you start doing is you start swimming upstream. So that's a very reactive thing. We have product coming at us. We're trying to figure out how to tell a story with these products. We need to fill them with data, blah, blah, blah. So we've solved that for a given value to solve. But then it's like, okay, well, every quarter there's another set of products coming our way. Every release, we're going to be hit with new things. How do we not be the downstream victims of that every time, right? Because that's exactly what happens. Product comes and says, here we have it. And you go, well, we don't know how to sell that because, it requires us setting up a cluster somewhere, or we have to set up a database. So the goal here is, as your demo engineering team matures, you swim upstream into product management and you seek a seat at the table when they're coming up with what products are going to be coming out 2 and 3 and 4 quarters from now, and say, just, have that person sit at the back of the room and raise their hand once in a while and go, so have you thought about how we're going to demo this? Or if they've been at it a while, they can put up their hand and go, to sell the product that you're going to be building, we're going to need an API that allows us to change the create dates on the create records, right? So to be able to say, hey, we need you to build this thing into the product so that the day this is GA, or at least the day we begin selling it, we can equip the field with what they need to sell it. And then when we talk about managing expectations upward, then we're talking about go-to-market strategy, reducing time to revenue for products, right? It's not just the demo team anymore. It's actually improving that pipeline to get product in front of customers faster.
I don't think I've ever thought of, which is unfortunate, having someone in the room with product regularly saying, in order to sell this, because it's always, in order for this product to work, in order to meet our customers' needs. There's very few organizations where that is a conversation in a product manager's meeting. In order to sell it, what do we need to do? I was actually at one organization where the instance we used to demo was considered the lowest priority environment and would get the update the last, and they would do like a 6-month rollout. And so we'd be 6 months into the GA product before we would have it available for us to show. We got to flip that around.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about here. It's a team that sits between product and solution engineering to smooth that path and to get this into the hands of your solution engineering team as fast as possible and as completely as possible. Not just, here, you can go install the product, but here's a fully configured product with all the data you need. Hey, here's even a script that you can use to tell the story. And we just announced GA, at our customer event this week. You can go show this to everybody right away.
And someone who's tied into the marketing side of it as well, they understand the go-to-market personas and how that will need to be tailored to those personas. They're in touch with the SCs, so they know what are the big deals that are going to want to see this right away, so they can make sure that's tied. All the things that literally have been in my pre-sales leader backlog of these would be nice things to have when we release new product. It's that.
That's demo engineering. And that's why probably demo engineering is a misnomer, because it really scopes what they do in a very tight way. But it's a go-to-market. It's a go-to-market team. It's just like product marketing and just like the training and enablement teams, they're part of the journey from product to the customers. And if you can frame them that way, I think you can be more successful than just, we're going to just have a little team of solution engineer helpers who help on deals from time to time.
I could see making a case for go-to-market engineer, right? Go-to-market consultants. Because that, you're right, is the value. It's all the things that we talk about at SKO that we want to be able to do about being strategic, but no one is actually doing it as their full-time job.
Yes. And I firmly believe that if something's not your full-time job, it's just not likely to get done. That's not fair. But if you make it someone's full-time job, it'll get done. And that's where we're talking about, is make a demo environment or make the go-to-market piece of this someone's sole job, not something they do as a hobby in between running around chasing customers. And if you can do that, you'll absolutely see the benefits. If you're starting an organization like this, don't bite off the biggest problem. Nibble around the edges on some of the little tactical things that drive people crazy. I'd like to always do one small or 2 small releases and 1 large release a quarter, right? 2 little things that have been driving you crazy for the last 10 years and 1 thing that you can really point at. And that was with a larger team. But if you can just have a regular cadence of, here's the thing that makes your life better. Here's the things that makes your life better. After a couple quarters, it becomes really obvious how valuable this team is.
I love it. I think it's a great place to end this episode. We are going to have you back on the next episode because we put up a little pin, put it in the parking lot, whatever analogy you want to use on the metrics. We're going to talk about proving the value. I think that's 100% the biggest hurdle, whether you're getting started or whether you've actually kicked it off and now you don't know how to prove the value of it. I can't wait to hear your insights on that. But I think that's going to do it for today. Any final thoughts, maybe something we didn't mention or something you want to reiterate on getting started and building that team?
I think your goal creating a demo engineering team is to support the solution engineers. And I think if you continue to make that your goal, to make their lives better, to make them more successful, to make them happier, to increase retention, and if you use that language to describe what you're doing, and the go-to-market stuff we were talking about. I think you'll have an easier time of building a team like this than trying to discuss technical capabilities or the kinds of problems that you might be solving in a technical way. So I think demo engineering spans a very wide field, as we found already in our conversation. And if you keep your mind open to how many things you can touch with that team, you can really be successful with it.
Great. Really appreciate it. Look forward to talking to you about metrics next.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the PreSales podcast by PreSales Collective. Did you know that we also post on the PreSales Collective blog following each episode? Head there to read through information on shows you might have missed or find another past episode to listen to. For more information on the PreSales podcast itself and to listen to those past episodes, visit presalescollective.com/podcast.